Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and after many years as a marketing leader in the B2B SaaS industry, I set up Hey Gabby to support startups and scale-ups with their go-to-market and growth needs. I work with so many great founders, and that's led me to want to hear their stories and share them with others. And that's why I set up this podcast. So let's get into this week's podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast. This week, we are catching up with a familiar face. Today, I have Aditya Jain back from Passionfruit. He's one of the co-founders and the CEO of Passionfruit. And we had him on our first season, episode, I think it was episode 12. And it feels like that time has just flown by. Welcome back to the show, Addy.
Thank you so much, Natalie. A pleasure being back on.
I mean, where has that time gone? It's just insane that it's over 12 months ago since we last spoke. And I'm sure it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you guys.
Certainly. Like it feels like I was on the podcast yesterday, but very excited to kind of reflect on how the past year has been together.
So at a very high level, if you were to kind of give a summary of how the last 12 months has been, how would you kind of describe it?
So I think from a growth perspective, things have been really, really well. I think we're projecting to scale by 10x. We've since grown by 20x. So it's been very good in terms of what targets we'd set on and how we are. I think the big thing that maybe has been is the development in the AI space in the marketing field has been at such a higher frequency than we anticipated. So 2026 has been all about just reinventing and just re-updating every week. So it feels like a very different kind of rut that we're in as opposed to what we were in 2025.
Amazing. And we're just going to take a quick moment to kind of reflect back on some of the things that you talked about in your first episode.
The main reason we created this community was we realized CMOs, like the marketing world is going through a major transition, as a lot of other fields are as well. But CMOs kind of are at the top of this chain where they have to understand what to invest in, where to put their time and energy. So the goal of the community was to bring CMOs having a similar mindset together under one umbrella from around the world and be able to share insights, get access to one another, connect with one another, as well as get access to certain resources that we want to make available either through our partner ecosystem or as a company ourselves, and basically make an open community for people to be able to discuss, share, and learn. So that's why we've kind of created this safe space for them where there's no branding or advertising. I know it's under the Passionfruit umbrella, but we don't use it as an advertising mechanism. It's more for people that we work with to come close to one another and be able to share insights and grow together.
Okay, so I mean, what a year it's been. You just mentioned some big numbers there. So even 10x in the current economy, that is fantastic. 20x. When you think about the AI space and marketing, there's more and more demands on marketers in the B2B space and the B2C space to win more customers, do it faster, do it leaner, do it more efficiently. So why don't you just take us back a step and remind us what Passionfruit do, and tell us, what it is that you're all about.
Yeah, certainly. So at Passionfruit, we basically provide an end-to-end managed service for people to manage their AEO and SEO presence, as well as recently we've expanded into ads and Reddit, and that's been a big focus for us. And then we're about to launch our agentic platform that enables marketers to run their teams on our AI agents, which are developed using some of the kind of groundbreaking kind of technology we've co-developed with Google in this space.
Amazing. And, there's obviously a huge appetite for these lean marketing teams to be able to do things fast and efficiently. Has the platform been driven by the demand of your services customers, or has it been, other people? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the point of Passionfruit and the way we've developed that is kind of been to prove and be the testing ground for what the future of a marketing org will look like if it's AI native. So a lot of the platform infrastructure and a lot of the work we've done across the board over the last 2 years has been really foundational based on the feedback that our customers give us and based on the nuances each instance we work on teaches us. And Oz, which is the new platform we're launching, is basically an outcome of that. That the goal of Oz is to be the platform that can be easily deployed into any marketing org and enable any CMO or any individual to basically solve the biggest problem statement where everyone wants to adopt AI, but the initial hurdle to do so is very, very high. And then to actually internalize the impact on revenue or impact on cost has been very, very hard to rationalize. So based on those two key problem statements, we keep hearing again and again from CMOs, the platform is basically a realistic example that's been deployed at over 500 orgs and then now coming to anybody else to access.
Wow, that's an amazing sample set, 500 companies. That's incredible. And what sort of businesses are you typically working with?
So the point of Passionfruit and then as the training ground for Oz has been is it has to be industry agnostic. So we work with a lot of B2B companies, B2C companies, and a lot of e-commerce companies across different geographies. And the purpose behind that agnostic nature of the business has been is there's a lot of different nuances within each sector. And the more we're able to create a centralized platform that can take on each of them, the more it's been able to learn and the easier it's been to kind of take into account each individual company's kind of nuances. So that's what we've done across different stages. So from enterprise customers all the way to young startups that are just entering this space is actually as wide as a data set that we've been able to work with and continue to service.
Amazing, amazing. And I know that for anyone that follows you on LinkedIn, they'll see that you guys do a lot of industry events. I know you invest heavily in shop talk. Do you find that the face-to-face relationship building has been what has made a difference for you guys?
So I think events have served sort of two core pieces. I think we started with doing a lot of events to try to close deals. And what drastically changed is, which has increased our frequency, is actually the relationship building piece where meeting existing clients and then also meeting similar faces that are other folks in the industry that are working on new things. I think those relationships have been very critical to help us grow and learn a lot. And I think the second piece, which is slightly less obvious for somebody that's going to present at a booth, has been is what everybody else comes there for. So when we see what people are talking about, what type of events are happening, what new booths come up, that's a very big learning experience for us in terms of what marketers are caring about and being able to see that. So what actually happens is when you start going to events on a regular cadence, you start seeing companies grow in scale, where somebody might have a startup booth or might just be coming to attend the event and then ends up getting a 20 by 20, while you'll see a company that used to get to a 20 by 20 cease to exist. So you end up seeing those cycles in industry very much very close. And that is a really, really good feedback loop that helps us better understand what are people really paying for and what do a lot of marketers care about. And both of those have been really critical in terms of cycles for us and why we are investing actually a lot more in events, especially this year. Like we're attending over 20 conferences, hosting more than 4 events every month in different geographies. So it's been primarily driven by a need for this.
Wow. And obviously with that, you've got to keep up with the trends that are going on at these different events and covering different geographies. That can be quite challenging. What are the core markets that you're focused on?
So US, Europe, and India are 3 core focus areas for us. One new expansion we're going to look into in the next 2 months has been Australia. And the reason behind doing different markets is I think the feedback loop for each market is very, very different. Where given that the Googles and the Facebooks of the world are deploying technology in different markets at a very different pace, the things that each company that's distributing in each market, what they care about is very, very different. So that's been really interesting to see and then be able to adjust kind of what can you bring in that's net new and what can you learn from one market and apply to the next.
Interesting. I think a lot of companies that are at the sort of stage and age that you are would be worried about spreading themselves too thin, especially when it comes to resources and budgets. How are you sort of juggling that?
Yeah, so actually, we got this advice last year from a senior leader at, at a very well established a tech company. And one big insight that he said was that I don't think geography restriction in the day of AI is any more a restriction companies should care about. At the end of the day, I don't need to sell a physical product. I don't need to create physical distribution. Um, and what we started doing was running experiments where we deployed playbooks that were successful in one area, but then leveraged AI to recreate those playbooks, find partners, and then co-host and co-launch activations for us in different areas. And that worked really well. And right now, what we do is rather than deploying like full-time folks across each growth vertical or each expansion arm, we actually just find local partners that are
Mm.
very aligned with a conference that we've attended or in line with creating a sales network that we want to focus on. And then they kind of lead that expansion for us where we both get enough value add.
Yeah, that's really smart. I think there's been other industries that have seen the channel and partner relationships help with that global expansion. And to your point, going into markets where some of the big boys, the big names in the industry, are not putting all their energy and efforts in, it's a great opportunity for companies like yourself to kind of break into.
Certainly. I think that's been huge, especially in geos like India and Australia.
Absolutely. Wow, so many positives. So I'm going to bring the tone down. What has been the biggest challenge in the last year for you?
Yeah, so I think when we were in the AEO space and solely in the AEO SEO space, I think it was pretty much a green field, especially when we began because nobody was looking into this space 2 years ago. And then it started to get crowded at the start of last year. And then I remember in September, we were at a conference and then it just suddenly felt like the wave side slightly changed, where a lot of what we were pitching and sharing became table stakes, and now even more so. Um, so there was a big rethink that we had to do in terms of what's our true value prop? How do we make sure marketers know what the differentiation is, and how do we reinvent the wheel to stay in the front? And as like code generation, as the amount of VC capital being deployed across the space just blew up, it became like very critical for us to really, really be focused on reinventing. And one big problem we had from September to Jan was we were trying to incrementally update, but at that point we realized that we need to think from scratch again and again. So instead of creating 12-month roadmaps for our product cycles, we started creating weekly roadmaps that incrementally updated, but had enough kind of independent work streams so you could rethink what's required the following 4 months down the line without having to have a dependency on what you've built in the last 3 months. Um, so I think that really helped, but that was a big change that we had to do. And it definitely caused a lot of uncertainty in the business in terms of how is the ops flowing through, how is the distribution flowing through, and you really had to retrain everybody across the org. But that was a big challenge, and that's still a big challenge because every day there's a new entrant in each space that you talk about, and each person is raising north of $5 million, north of $50 million. So I think there's a lot of noise, but there's also a lot of quality. So I think each company, and especially ourselves, are being challenged every week um, to really rethink what do we provide our end customer.
Mm. And with that, you know, you've talked about funding and the fact that it's a super busy space. I think last time we spoke, you hadn't taken any funding for the business. Is that something that you would be more open to? What are your thoughts on your kind of finances for the future?
Yeah. So I mean, we've considered it a couple of times, and we have really strong relationships with potential partners that if we do decide, there are some select few funds we'd love to work with, and we have strong relationships with them. I think the big reason we haven't taken funding is there's a strong belief in the way we're approaching the market and the growth that we're driving through, that we can continue to scale in a highly cost-effective manner. And I think like there are always waves of cycles where you see the positives and the negatives. What happens is with funding, the way you run the company and the architecture of what parts for each employee, each member of the team looks like change fairly drastically. So currently, given the growth we've received and we've been profitable since day one, it's been really critical for us to invest back that money completely into the company. And then we make sacrifices. Like, for example, for the last 4 months, I've not been taking a salary to ensure we can make every hire we want, and reinvest into the hires that we already have in the organization to give them the appraisals and the payouts that they expect. So we make those sacrifices, but to kind of keep true to kind of some core mission statements we have, we've just, as for now, decided not to raise money. That might be up to change in the future, but as for now, we're heads down building and just scaling.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And, we've talked about the fact that, it's just got busier and busier and more people talking about, the sector that you're in, and marketers really leaning in, their C-level executives kind of putting pressure on, why we're not showing up here, in the LLMs, et cetera, et cetera. How are you kind of differentiating yourselves in that busy, kind of noisy space? How are you standing out from the crowd, especially where they have more dollars at their exposure?
100%. So I think first is just in terms of waves, there was a wave of overpriced AEO tracking tools that didn't do much. So the first wave we tackled that was because we knew it's going to get commoditized. We built a random product that we were using internally and we made it public. It's called PF Tabs. And we just basically sourced out at cost of any LLM call. And then what happened was recommendations became slightly more generic and everybody else was providing that. We started doing the same thing. And then what we currently are seeing in the market is people are treating AEO and SEO as separate verticals. They have a lot of tools that they have at their disposal, but there are two biggest problems. First is most marketing teams don't have capacity to actually execute on all of the tasks each of these tools provide. The second piece has been is they're trying to operate AEO as a separate channel than SEO because we're still trying to hire capacity or figure out kind of how to marry those two work streams. And the third piece is, which is very common for especially mid-market companies, has been that finding it hard to justify the cost of investing in AEO in terms of actually tracking ROI from particular activities they're doing there. So what we've really done is provide all three together in one, where you don't have to build out capacity internally. You don't have to worry about tracking or measurement, etc. We provide the end-to-end service along with the best of the tracking tools out there. And then the core KPI we measure our success by, as well as pricing by, is the percentage revenue impact we drive for each company we work with. And that's core to kind of a differentiating factor that we have in terms of what sells into marketers. But internally, what we've also done is we have the most robust database of each action taken for both AEO and SEO, and what's the impact each action is driven. So having worked with so many clients, we feed every single action we take on every URL in real time and train our internal systems on that data so that the next time we generate the next action, it's a lot better in terms of the expected impact it can produce and a lot more accurate in generating that. And that's enabled us to shorten the timelines for impact and be able to deliver a much different experience on the first day of a client than even existing platforms with 6 months or 12 months of the same client's data can. And that's the compounding advantage that we've really invested in building in-house.
Interesting. You mentioned the percentage revenue impact that you drive. How are you measuring that? Who's giving you that information and how are they doing that?
Yeah. So we directly link with each company's kind of attribution layer. So for example, for e-commerce companies, it's a lot easier. Generally, either their Shopify or GA4 is a really good parameter for it. For companies that are generating leads or signups on like public SaaS solutions they sell, they assign a value to that, that they believe is what the cost they'd be willing to pay for acquiring that lead or that customer.
Mm-hmm.
And based on that, we track how much of the lift we generated based on each action we take. So each action is logged on a URL, and then we track how much lift was generated in that URL in terms of leads that URL generated over time. And it's highly concentrated to the activities and URLs we're working on. And that's what we account for. And that's the percentage that we account for in terms of our incremental impact.
Thank you for sharing that. I think anyone that's worked in marketing, anyone that understands marketing knows that SEO takes time. It's not an overnight success. It takes time to kind of build and create that momentum. And I'm sure that the same is exactly the same for AEO. How do you prepare your clients for that runway, and what are the things that you're saying to your clients about, when to expect results and how much and when they'll see that, elevation that they're looking for?
Yeah. So I do think that like we've never been aligned with that statement in terms of SEO and AEO taking time. The reason behind that is it's obviously not a tap like ads, where if tomorrow I run ads, I can expect X ROAS based on some existing kind of ROAS that I was running in previous campaigns. But given that refresh cycles on updates that Google and AI search engines are running have just gotten so much more frequent, and when you actually even just launch a website or create any sort of asset, the days in which it's getting indexed has just shortened so much that changes you're making and content pieces you're launching, etc., are able to create an impact much quicker than it was true 5 years ago. And when we basically sign on clients, we don't do 12-month pilots, we don't do 6-month pilots. We do a 3-month performance-based pilot, post which somebody can sign on for longer if they'd like. And for us, the big focus has been is part of building that engine of understanding which action is generating what impact is actually to be able to better forecast how much impact can I generate from a revenue perspective to build certainty into an engine that has never had any certainty, where no marketer can consistently rely on a particular organic channel consistently driving X dollars into that overall marketing revenue. So that's a big focus for us, and that's been something that we really try to get more and more on the nail. And for us, I think impact timelines has been anywhere between 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on the size of the organization.
Wow, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we've talked about the challenges for the last 12 months. Tell me about your kind of highlights. What have been the most fun, the best bits of the last 12 months?
Interesting. So we did one offsite with our entire team where we called everybody, including the remote employees, in person, and that was really lovely to see because that was like our first. We did like a 48-hour hackathon, and then led into this kind of celebration, and that was just amazing to see everybody together and celebrate and then see kind of how big the team had gotten and just meet every employee face to face. Some people turn out to be much taller than you see them on Zoom. Which is always
so is the way.
Yeah. So that was great. And then I think a couple of other highlights are slightly hard to recollect, but there was one conference that we had where last minute 2 of our salespeople fell sick. So I had one of my friends who's at business school bring one of his friends and himself, and it was fun to see one of my best friends sell our product. And it was a very exciting kind of first conference, which was co-hosted with a couple of friends, which was very exciting. So that was definitely a highlight, having them learn more about Passionfruit and actually be a salesperson for us. So that was really cool. And then we launched our first product, which was a very exciting launching on Product Hunt and getting on the first customers that are kind of self-serve, and we don't really go through a sales cycle or anything there, which was cool. And I think this year, just seeing the Oz product and seeing the team's reaction to that has been really kind of like a big achievement for us. So I'm really excited for that, but that's a big highlight.
Yeah, I can imagine. And getting everyone together, I mean that's always a nice thing. How many folks did you have coming together? Because I know you've grown quite a bit.
So at that time, we were a team of about, I would say 45,
Hmm.
50. Yeah.
Wow. And I know that you work sort of around the clock, and you have a global team, and kind of supporting customers and doing all of that. So I think it's great that you managed to get everybody together, and keep going. I'd love to know what your plans are for the next 12 months. As you know, on this show, we like to bring people back like yourself, and obviously to kind of look at what you would like to manifest for the next 12 months. What do you hope is going to happen?
Yeah. So I think one big focus for us is to prove out um, Oz into the market and make that kind of the poster child for passion fruit to be able to scale on. So that's a big, big focus for us coming into this year, and something we want to spend the next 12 months really getting right and finding product market fit for that. The second piece within passion fruit services verticals is um, we've been really been building capabilities in-house to expand into Reddit and ads. And we're seeing the ecosystem kind of merge in terms of how we can provide an end-to-end offering for our customers there. So really scaling those two verticals, we've been fortunate to hire some really good folks that have led these divisions at some large agencies and companies before. So um, cohesively scaling those three across our existing clients and then be able to scale that for net new clients is a big focus for us, given how Meta launched their MCP, etc. So bringing that new technology into those spaces is a big focus for us. So 10xing revenues from this space, from this stage, is a big focus for us in the next 12 months. And then third piece is every month we basically create a list of some dream clients that the sales team gets a mandate to then go out and try to reach out to and close. So the goal is that we really are able to close more of those dream clients every single month, because that brings a different level of excitement where we get a bunch of their products in office and stuff like that. So it's always nice to see that coming in.
Amazing, amazing. And in the longer term vision, what's your longer term vision for the organization?
Yeah. So I think at Passion Fruit, the mission statement is to democratize growth. And the two kind of avenues you want to do that through is first, for I think an increasingly large number of companies that have smaller marketing teams, um, Oz will be the default operating system through which they're able to internally completely operate off that platform and make that the core operating system for marketers, where they can automatically deploy their AI agents and be able to kind of really consolidate the work streams they're solely responsible for. And the second piece is we want to scale that up even to enterprise customers that we currently service today, that they use Oz and Passion Fruit as an extension of the service of the Oz offering as its service arm, as their default extension to their marketing teams, and have Oz be the default operating system across the board.
Great. So we talked a lot about the business. You mentioned earlier you've taken a salary sacrifice, which is always terrifying, and you're always on a plane and you're super busy. How are you balancing, your own kind of downtime and your own life outside of passion fruit, if there is a life outside of passion fruit?
So I recently got engaged. So
Congratulations!
thank you. So that somehow got managed, which I'm very happy about. I'm lucky to have a very supportive partner who really understands and supports my work. So it's been great. But I think Sundays are a good day where I generally get to spend time with family and friends, and it's been great to have people like that that support your vision. I think also with the type of team members that we've hired, they really take on a lot of the work off my plate, and have been like become very constructive to kind of what the next 12, 24, and 36 months of the company look like. So it's been great, and I love traveling, so it's always good to be on a plane.
So eventually you'll have to diarize time for your wedding, and
Yes.
everything else. So, I guess with that, and you've mentioned that, you've got some great people on the staff as well to support you. How has your role changed in the last 12 months? Because you've always been very hands-on and, in a lot of things. How has it evolved over those last 12 months?
Yeah. So I think in the first 6 months of that 12-month period, what we realized was that it's getting hard for Rishabh and I as co-founders to be involved in each vertical and each stream and each client. So the first thing we did was spent a lot of time basically hiring team leads that lead each division that we have. And then we created a lot of kind of agents internally that systematized a lot of the work that happened so that tracking and KPI measurement became a lot easier and daily delivery became a lot easier to track and be able to commit to. I think what's been hard over the last 6 months, which has been really critical, is be able to pick the biggest problem statements and go in and tackle them and operationalize them, and trust my team leads to do their kind of primary work, which is scaling and improving their departments' outputs and throughputs. So that's been a lot more exciting, but I'm spending a lot less time with the team at large, but a lot more time with my team leads and getting feedback from clients across the board, which has put me at a more strategic level. But what I still get very hands-on with is new vertical expansion. And then one policy we have is no matter which stage of the company you're at, you have to be involved with at least one client delivery project, so you understand how the ops go for that. So that's been interesting, where seeing how that's changed over the course of the 12 months with the same client has been very interesting. So that still keeps me close to kind of the core problem statements that we're facing across a 100+ person team today.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like it's been an incredible year for you already. And this year is already shaping up to be an amazing year for you as well. So I would love to have you back on the show next year. Would you be happy to come back in 12 months' time?
Yes, certainly, Natalie. Would love to.
Awesome.
Hopefully
Well,
in
we
person
know.
next time.
Oh, hopefully that would be fantastic. Absolutely. Well, we know that time is going to fly. So I wish you all the best for the next year.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.